At 60, I thought I'd found love again after 15 years alone. He was perfect, attentive, always available. But when he asked to borrow $8,000 for his mother's surgery, something felt wrong. I said yes. Then I hired a private investigator. What he found made my blood run cold. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Barbara Holloway, and I never thought I'd be one of those women swiping through dating apps at my age. But after my husband passed away in 2010, and after watching my friends find companionship online, I figured, why not? The worst that could happen was a few awkward coffee dates and some interesting stories to tell my book club. I downloaded the app on a Tuesday evening in late September. My daughter Emma had helped me set up my profile the weekend before, though she kept insisting I was too trusting and needed to be careful. I smiled and nodded, but honestly, I thought she was being dramatic. I'd spent 32 years working in insurance fraud investigation before I retired. I knew how to spot a liar, or so I thought. The first few weeks were exactly what I expected. Boring conversations, men who posted photos from 20 years ago, and a surprising number of people who couldn't spell basic words. I was about to delete the whole thing when I got a message at 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday night. Barbara, I have to say, your profile made me smile. A woman who lists arguing with her GPS as a hobby is someone I need to know. His name was Richard Caldwell. His profile said he was 62, a retired architect, widowed for 3 years. His photos showed a silver-haired man with kind eyes, wearing casual button-down shirts, standing in front of what looked like beautiful buildings in Europe. He looked normal. Real. We started messaging that night and didn't stop for 2 hours. He was witty, asked questions about my life, remembered details I'd mentioned. When I said I loved old movies, he quoted Casablanca. When I mentioned my garden, he sent me a photo of roses he'd planted in his backyard. By the end of the first week, we'd moved to phone calls. His voice was warm, slightly raspy, the kind of voice that made you feel safe. We talked about everything. His late wife, Margaret, who'd passed from cancer. My late husband, Tom, who'd had a sudden heart attack while mowing the lawn. We talked about our kids, our regrets, our hopes for whatever time we had left. I never thought I'd feel this way again, he told me during our call on Sunday night, October 11th. But Barbara, talking to you feels like coming home. I felt the same way. For the first time in 15 years, I wasn't just existing. I was living again. We met in person 2 weeks later at a small Italian restaurant called Marcello's on Main Street. I arrived at 6:30 p.m., wearing a navy dress I'd bought specifically for the occasion. When he walked through the door at exactly 6:30 p.m., he looked just like his photos, maybe even better. He brought me white roses. For the lady who brings light back into dark places, he said, handing them to me. That first dinner lasted 3 hours. We talked, we laughed, we shared tiramisu. When he walked me to my car, he kissed my hand and asked if he could see me again. I said yes before he'd even finished the sentence. Over the next month, Richard became a constant presence in my life. We had dinner twice a week, always at nice restaurants. He texted me good morning every single day at 7:15 a.m. without fail. He called me every evening at 8 p.m., even if just to say goodnight. He remembered that I took my coffee with cream and no sugar. He asked about my garden, my book club, my daughter. He seemed perfect. Too perfect, maybe, but I pushed that thought away. After so many years alone, didn't I deserve something good? Then came November 18th, a Wednesday I'll never forget. We were having dinner at a steakhouse called the Timber Room. Richard had been quieter than usual, seeming distracted. Halfway through our meal, he set down his fork and reached across the table to take my hand. Barbara, I need to tell you something, and I'm embarrassed to even bring it up. My heart started beating faster. Was he sick? Was he moving away? My mother, he continued, his voice cracking slightly, she's in the hospital. She needs emergency surgery. A heart valve replacement. The insurance is covering most of it, but there's a gap of $8,000 that needs to be paid upfront before they'll schedule the procedure. He looked down at our joined hands. I've been trying to pull together the money, but my retirement accounts are tied up, and liquidating them early would cost me in penalties. I hate to ask, but could you lend me the money? Just for 2 weeks, until I can access my funds. I'll pay you back with interest. Everything in that moment felt wrong. The timing, the amount, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. But another part of me, the part that had grown to care for this man, wanted to believe him. Wanted to be the person who helped someone in need. Of course, I heard myself say, "Your mother needs the surgery. We'll figure it out." The relief on his face looked genuine. He squeezed my hands, his eyes actually welling up with tears. "Thank you, Barbara. You have no idea what this means to me. I'll have the money back to you by December 3rd at the latest. I promise." That night, I went home and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Something felt off. I'd spent 3 decades investigating insurance fraud, following paper trails, spotting inconsistencies in stories. And Richard's story had inconsistencies. Why would insurance not cover a necessary heart surgery? Why exactly $8,000? Why couldn't he get a short-term loan from his bank? Why hadn't he mentioned his mother being ill before this? At 2:30 a.m., I made a decision. I got out of bed, went to my home office, and opened my laptop. I still had connections from my years in fraud investigation. One of them was a private investigator named Marcus Webb, who owed me a favor from a case I'd helped him with years ago. I sent him an email with everything I knew about Richard Caldwell. His full name, age, the city he claimed to live in, his supposed career as an architect, his phone number, even the restaurants where we'd had dinner. "Marcus," I wrote, "I need you to look into this man. Deep dive. I have a bad feeling, and I've learned to trust my instincts. I'll pay your full rate. I need answers fast." I hit send at 2:47 a.m. The next morning, I transferred $8,000 to the account number Richard had given me. I texted him to let him know, and he responded immediately with heart emojis and promises that his mother's surgery was scheduled for the following Monday. "You're an angel, Barbara. I'll never forget this kindness." Marcus called me on Friday afternoon at 3:15 p.m. I was in my garden, pruning roses that had bloomed late into the season. "Barbara," his voice was grim, "you need to sit down for this." I sat on my garden bench, my hands suddenly cold despite the mild November sun. "Richard Caldwell exists," Marcus began, "but the man you've been seeing isn't him. The real Richard Caldwell is 68 years old and lives in Maine with his wife of 40 years. The photos your Richard used were stolen from the real Richard's LinkedIn profile from 5 years ago." My mouth went dry. "The man you know as Richard is actually named Dennis Michael Porter. He's 59, lives in a rented apartment in Clearwater, and has done this before. Multiple times." "How many times?" I whispered. "I found 4 other women in the last 8 months alone. Different cities, different stories, but the same pattern. He meets them on dating apps, builds a relationship for 4 to 6 weeks, then hits them with an emergency that requires money. Usually between $7,000 and $12,000. I closed my eyes, feeling stupid and angry and heartbroken all at once. "The mother with the heart surgery." Marcus continued. "His mother died in 2003. Barbara, I'm sorry, but you need to know everything. This man is a professional con artist. He's likely running this scam on multiple women simultaneously. Can you find the other women?" I asked, my voice steadier than I expected. "The current ones, I mean. The ones he's scamming right now." There was a pause. "That's an unusual request. Most people just want their money back." "I don't want my money back," I said, an idea forming in my mind. "I want something better. Can you find them or not? Give me 48 hours." Marcus called me back on Sunday evening at 7:22 p.m. I found 4 women. All active, all in different stages of his con. One just met him last week. One gave him money 3 days ago. Want their contact information? Yes. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with 4 names, 4 phone numbers, and 4 email addresses written on a notepad in front of me. Janet Morrison, 58, from Denver. Lisa Chen, 63, from Portland. Diane Russo, 55, from Atlanta. And Claire Whitmore, 61, from Chicago. I started with Janet. I called her at 9 a.m. on Monday morning, my hands shaking as I dialed. Hello. Her voice was cheerful, unsuspecting. Hi, Janet. My name is Barbara Holloway. I know this is going to sound insane, but I need you to hear me out. Do you know a man named Richard Caldwell? Silence. Then, quietly, how do you know that name? Because I've been dating him too. Or I thought I was. Janet, he's not who he says he is. Over the next hour, I told her everything. Marcus's findings, the real Richard Caldwell, the pattern of fraud. At first, she didn't believe me. Then she started asking questions. Then she started crying. He asked me for money last week, she whispered. $9,000. His daughter supposedly needs emergency medical treatment. I was going to transfer it today. Don't, I said firmly. Janet, I have a better idea. But I need you to trust me, and I need you to help me contact the other women. By Tuesday afternoon, all 5 of us were on a conference call. Janet from Denver, who'd almost sent him $9,000 for his daughter's medical emergency. Lisa from Portland, who'd already sent him $11,000 for business loan repayment. Diane from Atlanta, who'd sent $7,000 for his son's bail money. And Claire from Chicago, who'd just had her first in-person date with him 3 days ago and hadn't been asked for money yet. We were all intelligent, accomplished women. Janet was a retired teacher. Lisa had owned a small business. Diane was a former nurse. Claire was a professor of literature. And yet, we'd all fallen for the same lies. I feel so stupid, Lisa said, her voice breaking. I'm 63 years old. I should have known better. He's a professional, I told her. This is what he does. He studies people, finds their vulnerabilities, exploits their loneliness. We are not stupid. We are human beings who wanted companionship. There's no shame in that. So what do we do now? Diane asked. Go to the police. We could, I said slowly, but here's the problem. He's using different names, different stories. He's careful not to leave clear evidence trails. The police would investigate, sure, but cases like this take months, sometimes years. And even if they catch him, he might get a few years in prison at most, then go right back to doing this to other women. What are you suggesting? Claire asked. I'm suggesting we give him exactly what he deserves. But I need all of you on board, and I need Claire's help specifically. I'm listening, Claire said. Here's what we planned. Claire was the newest victim, the one he hadn't asked for money yet. She would continue the relationship, acting completely normal. Meanwhile, the rest of us would document everything, compile evidence, create a comprehensive file of his fraud pattern. Then, at the right moment, we'd set a trap. Over the next 2 weeks, we worked like a well-oiled machine. I used my fraud investigation background to compile documents. Lisa, who was tech-savvy, created a shared drive where we uploaded screenshots of every text message, every email, every photo he'd sent us. We documented the identical phrases he used, the recycled poems, the manufactured emergencies. Diane, with her medical background, pointed out that several of his medical emergencies described procedures that didn't match the symptoms he'd claimed. The heart valve replacement my mother supposedly needed? The symptoms he described were completely wrong. Janet, with her teacher's attention to detail, noticed that he'd sent the same original poem to at least 3 of us, just changing the name, and Claire kept dating him, gathering more evidence with each interaction. She reported back to us after every date, every phone call. He's escalating with me, she told us on a call on December 2nd. Tonight at dinner, he mentioned his car is breaking down. I think the money ask is coming soon. Perfect, I said. When he asks, tell him yes. Tell him you'll meet him to give him the money. Suggest somewhere public. On December 8th at 6:47 p.m., Richard texted Claire. I hate to ask, but my car completely died today. The mechanic says it needs $8,500 in repairs, and I need my car to get to work. Is there any way you could help me out? I'll pay you back by Christmas, I promise. Claire responded, Of course. I care about you. I can meet you tomorrow to give you the money. How about Riverside Park at noon? There's a nice cafe there where we can sit and talk. He agreed immediately. The next day, December 9th, all 5 of us arrived at Riverside Park at 11:30 a.m. Claire was sitting at an outdoor table at the cafe, looking nervous but determined. The rest of us were positioned at different locations throughout the park. I was at a bench near the fountain. Janet was at another cafe table, pretending to read. Lisa was walking her sister's dog along the path. Diane was sitting in her car in the parking lot. We all had our phones ready, set to record. At exactly noon, Dennis Michael Porter, the man we'd known as Richard Caldwell, walked up to Claire's table. He was wearing a dark blue sweater and khaki pants, carrying the same charm and warm smile he'd used on all of us. He sat down, reached for Claire's hand. Thank you so much for this. You have no idea what it means to me. Claire smiled. Actually, Richard, before we talk about the money, I want you to meet some friends of mine. His expression shifted slightly, confusion creeping in. Friends. That's when I stood up and walked over. Hi, Richard. Or should I call you Dennis? His face went pale. He started to stand, but Janet had already moved to block his path on one side, and Lisa was approaching from the other direction. What is this? He stammered. This, I said calmly, pulling out my phone and holding up a photo of the real Richard Caldwell with his wife, is the moment you realize you picked the wrong women to scam. Diane had joined us now too, standing behind Claire's chair. All 5 of us, surrounding him. We know everything, Claire said softly. We know about Janet's daughter's medical emergency. We know about Lisa's business loan. We know about Diane's son's bail money. We know about Barbara's mother's surgery. We know it's all lies. He tried to bluster. I don't know what you're talking about. You're all crazy. We have evidence, I said, placing a thick folder on the table. Screenshots of identical messages sent to all of us. The same poems, word for word, just with different names. Photos you stole from the real Richard Caldwell's LinkedIn. We have your real name, Dennis Michael Porter. We have your address in Clearwater. We know about the apartment you rent month to month so you can leave quickly when things get hot. We also, Lisa added, have recordings of several of our phone conversations with you. Turns out, some states only require one-party consent for recording calls. The color had completely drained from his face. He looked around, perhaps calculating whether he could run, but we'd chosen this location carefully. Park security was visible nearby. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to wire back every penny you stole from Lisa and Diane. You're going to do it today, right now, from your phone. We'll wait. And if I don't? His voice was weak, nothing like the warm, confident tone he'd used when courting us. Then we go to the police with everything we have, Diane said. Wire fraud, identity theft, operating under false pretenses. We've already consulted with a lawyer. You're looking at serious prison time. Plus, Janet added, we'll make sure every dating app knows your face and your real name. We'll post warnings in every online forum we can find. Your con artist career will be over. He stared at us, probably weighing his options, trying to find a way out. But there wasn't one. We'd built a cage around him with evidence and numbers and the combined strength of 5 women who'd refused to be victims. Slowly, he pulled out his phone. Under our watchful eyes, he opened his banking app and transferred $11,000 back to Lisa. Then $7,000 to Diane. The $8,000 to Barbara too, Claire said firmly. That account's already closed, he muttered. I moved the money. Then you'll write her a check from your personal account, I said. Right now. He did. His hand was shaking as he wrote it out. When it was done, He looked up at us with something like hatred in his eyes. "You can't prove any of this in court. I'll say you're lying." "Maybe," I said. "But we don't need a courtroom. We have something better. We have each other's backs, and we have the internet. Every woman in every city you operate in will know your face by tomorrow morning. We've already started the process." Lisa held up her phone, showing him a draft post ready to go on multiple dating safety forums, complete with his photo and real name. He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the concrete. "You're all bitter, lonely old women. No wonder your husbands died to get away from you." It was a desperate, cruel attempt to hurt us. A few weeks ago, it might have worked. But we weren't the same women he'd targeted anymore. "And you," Claire said calmly, "are a pathetic man who preys on people's loneliness because you have nothing genuine to offer the world. I'd rather be alone forever than be anything like you." He left without another word, walking quickly toward the parking lot. We let him go. We'd gotten what we came for. After he disappeared, the five of us sat down at Claire's table. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Janet started laughing. Not a bitter laugh, but something genuine and free. "We actually did it," she said. "We actually did it." "We did," I agreed, feeling something warm spreading through my chest. Not revenge exactly, but justice. Closure. We stayed at that cafe for 2 more hours, talking, sharing, processing what had just happened. We talked about the loneliness that had made us vulnerable, the societal pressure that made older women feel invisible or desperate. We talked about how intelligent, successful women could still be manipulated when someone found the right emotional buttons to push, but mostly, we talked about moving forward. Before we left, Lisa made a suggestion. "We should stay in touch. Really stay in touch. Not just because of this, but because, I don't know, I feel like we've become friends through this mess." We all agreed. We created a group chat that day, called it the Second Chapter Club. We promised to check in with each other weekly, to meet up when we could, to be there for each other. 3 weeks later, on December 30th, I received a call from Marcus Webb. Dennis Michael Porter had been arrested in Florida for attempted fraud against another woman. But this time, when she'd Googled his name, she'd found the warnings we'd posted online. She'd gone straight to the police with our documented evidence. Our case, our evidence, had helped put him away. That night, I opened a bottle of wine and sat on my back porch, wrapped in a blanket against the winter cold. My phone buzzed with messages from the group chat. Janet sending photos of her grandchildren. Lisa sharing a meme. Diane asking for recipe advice. Claire sending a poem she'd written. At 60 years old, I'd learned something important. I'd thought I was looking for romance, for love, for someone to fill the empty space Tom had left. But what I'd actually found was something better: community, friendship, strength. I did eventually return to dating apps, but with different eyes. More cautious, yes, but also more confident. Because I knew now that I wasn't alone. I had 4 women who had my back, who understood what it meant to start over, to be vulnerable, to be brave enough to try again, and if I ever met another Richard Caldwell, well, I had a whole team ready to take him down. The garden roses I'd planted that fall bloomed beautifully the following spring. I cut 5 stems and mailed one to each of the women. On the card, I wrote, "For growing something beautiful from broken ground." Because that's exactly what we'd done.